All right then. Topic three. I'm just gonna let you take this one away.
Yeah, well, yeah, just intrude with questions because this is going to be an interesting topic. So how this got started is it all started with a video game named StarCraft 2. I was big into StarCraft 2. I played it a lot online, and I followed the pro scene. And as a lot of people know, the pro scene is in South Korea. That is where esports is the biggest, pretty much, even now with League of Legends and Dota. Um, and so I followed the Korean like pro scene pretty like when I get into something like competitive like that, I tend to follow like for gaming at least I tend to follow the pro scenes like pretty like regularly. So like I've been playing a lot of Magic the Gathering recently, and I follow like the Magic Pro Tour when they put that up on Twitch. So yeah, I was following the Korean pro StarCraft scene for a while, and um, that kind of led into getting into K-pop because during some tournaments, sometimes they would have K-pop performances before, and a streamer I follow named Huck, he who was actually American, but he would play K-pop music videos on his stream when he was in between matches. So that kind of just like it's the catchiest stuff you've ever heard. It's like they took American pop from like the '90s and even now, because at this point, like K-pop isn't really a genre. There's like EDM K-pop, there's hip hop K-pop, like there's what you'd expect like bubblegum K-pop. Um, but they kind of like took the American music scene, fused it with J-pop, and kept like the or like expanded on the '90s like boy band and girl groups like that we had, so like Spice Girls and Backstreet Boys and stuff. Like they've expanded on that and perfected it in ways you'd never expect.
Hmm.
Um, but so yeah, I followed StarCraft and kind of got into K-pop that way, and it's just insanely catchy. And I like to say the best part about it is it's like American pop, but you can't understand the lyrics because the lyrics are the worst part about American pop because they're so poorly written. And K-pop is like that too, but I don't understand. Like, I mean, I understand a lot more now, but like, you don't understand the majority of it, so it's not so stereotypical. It's more of
Hmm.
just the singing is just another instrument, um, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so I got into K-pop like a lot, which also led into just Korean pop culture in general. Variety shows are a big thing over there. So how that happened is so a lot of K-pop groups are like they all have you have members and like they're kind of marketed as like you pick your favorite member, or you follow the group or whatever. And then, so they go on these variety shows, which are like comedy skit slash game show slash reality show that's like half scripted and half improv. If that makes like it's really hard to explain, but like um, but they'll have K-pop idols as guests on these shows. So I started watching these shows, just the episodes where like my favorite groups were on, and some of them were just so funny. Like some of these are like the funniest shows I've ever seen. So I just started watching these shows. Like Running Man's probably the most like popular one, where there's a fixed guest of like 7 people, and then they have guests or a fixed cast of 7 people, which like some of them are comedians, some of them are musicians, some of them are actors. Um, but they're on every week, and then they invite guests sometimes. Most episodes have guests. But then they play like these just random games, just and make jokes the whole time, and they're just really funny. But yeah, I started following just the episodes that the groups that I followed were on, but continued following them. And that just kind of got me into Korean culture, which led me to thinking about studying abroad there, which is crazy if you had known me up to that point because I've grown up in suburbs of Detroit. I had never left the suburbs of Detroit. Well, like, so I went to school 10 hours away, but it's still in Michigan.
Hmm.
It's in the middle of nowhere in the Upper Peninsula. Um, basically I make the joke I try to get as far away from school or home as possible while keeping in-state tuition. Um, so, but other than going to school, which that town that the school is in has 6,000 people in it, and then the school adds about 8,000 people. So we add more people during the school year than to double the population. But it's literally in the middle of nowhere. There's like no one that lives there. And then I've grown up in the suburbs of Detroit, but I've never left the country other than Canada, which doesn't count. Um, and so I was just like, okay, this seems like a cool thing to do. I'd read up on it. And that's the one thing is if any of you listening are in college and even remotely thinking about doing this, do it because it's like the coolest experience ever. And literally everyone I talked to said that. And luckily I believed them because I tried. So yeah, in 2012, I was doing a co-op in Minnesota for 8 months. And then once that ended, the fall semester, I flew to Seoul. Didn't know anyone, didn't know the language. I can read the alphabet, so I could read like street signs, even though they all have English on them too, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, didn't know anyone, didn't know the language. I just flew over there and lived there for 4 months, and it was like the coolest experience ever. Um, a couple things I regret is if you can do homestay, like live with a family in that country that you go to, because for us, I stayed in a dorm and they had an international dorm. So I was with all the other study abroad students. So we spoke English and we didn't really get as much of the culture like immersion as I would have liked. Because I was with I was with people from other cultures, which is cool. So like I have friends that are in like France and Germany and Australia and stuff, but we all spoke English pretty much, and kind of hung out together. We didn't really get to it wasn't as easy to meet Korean students and like befriend Korean students, being in our own dorm, if that makes sense. So yeah, I would say do like homestay or like live with a family and try to get immersed more in the culture. But yeah, it was a really really cool experience. The food is amazing. If you've ever had Korean, have you ever had Korean food?
I don't. I mean, not
Okay,
like not notably Korean. No.
okay. Well, if you have a Korean barbecue restaurant near you, go to Korean barbecue. It's like the best food. It's like the best food ever.
Okay.
What they
Well, yeah. I've probably had Korean barbecue.
Okay, yeah. Well, like if you can do like the completely traditional experience, like some places have it, where because how Korean barbecue works is you sit down at a table and there's a grill inside the table, like in the middle of the table, and they just hand you like raw meat and you just cook it at your table. They give you all these sides to mix, like you make lettuce wraps with it. So you put like rice and kimchi is fermented spicy cabbage, which sounds horrible because I don't like sauerkraut, but it's amazing. Uh, it's literally like spicy sauerkraut, but it tastes way different. Um, but yeah, you mix all this stuff and make like lettuce wraps, or you just eat the meat straight. But yeah, their food in Korea is amazing. It was really cool living in a city that big. Like Seoul is like a third of the population of the country. Because I mean, the country is only as big as like I don't know. I'm trying to think of what probably like half of California or whatever. It's not a big country.
Yeah.
But the Seoul metropolitan area is like 33 million people. It's like more than a third of the country or whatever population. So yeah, living in a huge city like that was really cool. Considering like I said, I went to school in a place that had 6,000 people. I went to one of the three like most prestigious schools there, which was really cool. Luckily, that was just the exchange program. And it's like right in the middle of Seoul. Their public transportation's amazing, so I was able to go to tons of different places without having to worry about like just dealing with getting anywhere, not having a car or whatever. Like the subway was amazing, buses worked perfectly. They actually have like these cards that you put money on that work on all sorts of public transportation, so even taxis. So it's just a chip on it, RFID chip, that lets you go to use the subway, use the bus, or taxis even. So yeah, definitely studying abroad is cool. Definitely do that if you have a chance. It was a great experience.
Were you still like getting exposed to all the things that had kind of brought you there, like the culture and the
Yeah,
shows
yeah,
and the
yeah. So yeah, actually that was cool. I got to see. I went to the finals of one of the seasons of StarCraft Pro, like Pro season or whatever, which was in like a really fancy theater in Gangnam, which everyone knows from Gangnam Style,
hmm,
which is like Gangnam is like the like I don't know like the affluent district of Seoul.
okay.
Um, so that's where all the like celebrities live, and like that's where all everything's really expensive there. Um, but yeah, there was really cool like fancy theater there that the finals were held in, so I got to see that live. Luckily, a lot of the people that also studied abroad there were into K-pop and could navigate Korean websites, so I was able to actually see a lot of concerts um, for free even. They, some of them like we went to this huge concert that had like 20 different groups, all like really big groups, and we actually got in for free because they let 200 foreigners in for free because they put us right next to the stage because they film us and put us on TV. They're like, hey, look, foreigners like our music too, so they show up. I mean, we got literally like I was 4 feet from the stage where the artists were for free because I'm
Nice.
a foreigner. So I can't complain.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily there were friends that were studying abroad that were able to navigate the websites and figure out where this stuff was and how, because usually the instructions to get there were in Korean,
Hmm.
and I'm not fluent, so
Did
like I
you
said,
like how much do you think you picked up being there?
so we actually had to take a class.
Yeah.
So there's a foreign language institute that was part of the school or like partnered with the school. So that was actually half of our day. It was 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. Was just Korean class. So I picked up a lot. I don't remember most of it just because I don't use it anymore, and that was 3 years ago. Unfortunately, I keep a decent amount just from watching variety shows. But I still watch them subbed. Like I can't watch them without subtitles
Yeah.
and understand the majority of what's going on.
Is it something you'd love to like? Would you, if you had the opportunity, would you go back and just kind of travel back there for full
Yeah,
time?
I actually for a while thought about going back to teach for like a year or two because
Hmm.
I really did love living there. Like it was an amazing experience. It was actually really good for my health because not having a car, I had to walk everywhere. It's fairly hilly, so I got a decent amount of exercise. Plus, their food's just way healthier. Like it's not there's not very much fried stuff. It's all meat and vegetables, and like there isn't very much like carbs other than rice. So I actually lost like 30 pounds in the 4 months I was there. Um, so it was pretty good for my health. And I thought about going back to teach there. It's just really hard to leave my well-paying established job and that
Yeah.
I'm a salaried like employee that I'm building up a retirement fund and stuff. Like it's hard to quit that to go to the other side of the world to make a lot less money.
Yeah. No, it's certainly that's certainly kind of the I think the standard of like it is a thing you do in college,
Yeah,
or like a year or two after college
yeah.
you
If
go
I
and
went right after instead of going starting at work, then I probably should have, but fortunately, I feel like I might have like, missed out on that. That's actually why I moved home because I'm actually back in my parents' house. I was in an apartment for 2 years. My lease ended, and I moved home, and I was like, okay, either I'm gonna go move to Korea, so I want to save some money because I was paying like $1,000 in rent basically, which isn't crazy when we hear about like California and stuff, but in the middle in Michigan, that's like it's a little high.
yeah,
Um, and or worst case, if I don't go to Korea, I could save a bunch of money and get a condo or buy a house.
yeah.
So yeah, so I definitely I think I'm gonna plan a trip to go there just for vacation at some point. It's just I would want like 2 weeks. What I'm
Yeah,
thinking,
that's
well, what I'm actually thinking is because while I was there, it's really really cheap to go to Japan because it's
Hmm.
right there. Like the flight's like less like $100 or something. But I wasn't able to while I was there just because I didn't have any money. I spent all my money getting to Korea and living there. Um, so I wasn't able to do a trip to Japan. So I think what I'm going to do is take a 2 week vacation and spend a week in Korea and then a week in Japan because I've always clearly video games have been a big part of my life and I've always wanted to go to Japan.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Um, yeah, and that's the like I'm looking at. I'm currently scheduled, and I don't know if I'll actually even be able to like stick with it, just because of other things on my plate. But I've got like a trip to Sydney booked for RTX
Oh, for our
Australia.
trips to Australia, yeah,
Um, and I was like, I'm not gonna go just for the weekend. So like
yeah,
it's like a 10-day trip or something that I've got booked so that I could actually have like time to enjoy
yep,
kind of the like the tourismy things
touristy
of
stuff,
it.
yeah.
But yeah, it's like I couldn't say like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go for like 2 or 3 days and just do that for a trip of like that scope.
Yep.
It's fine if I'm just gonna like if I wanted to go to Chicago or something for a weekend, like
Hmm.
that's more like I'm more inclined to do that. But if I am like going out of the country and like somewhere like Australia
Yeah,
where I'm like flying for 20 hours to it or
yeah, yeah,
something,
exactly.
it's like yeah,
Yeah,
no,
the
like I should stay at least 3 times as long as the travel time.
yeah, yeah,
um,
definitely.
um,
Yeah, even 4 months felt short in Korea. I
yeah.
just wanted, because I just loved it so much. I, because it was a semester before I graduated, so I had to spend my last semester at school, like at my school. I couldn't, otherwise I would have probably done a year,
Hmm.
extended it for to do 2 semesters. Um, but yeah, I was too close to graduating. I couldn't. Plus, I had a couple classes I couldn't take there that I would have had to be at school for.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, actually, I'm thinking about. I started a kind of funny K-pop Facebook chat that we have like four or like 6 people in. Just people I found in the Facebook group that also really into K-pop. Um, and one of them just started college, and he's like thinking about he's probably gonna go study abroad there just because I talked about it so much and liked it so much.
Very cool.
So if anyone listening is really into K-pop, let me know and I'll add you to the Facebook chat.
There you go. Get on that K-pop.
Uh,
So what are the what like is it just kind of the hyper boy bandy girl groupy like nature
so
of this of the like the music that like gets you and keeps you
it's
in
just like
K-pop?
the catchy. Well, the catchy music is definitely like the basis of it. But I think like part of it is I'm just an obsessive person. So like I have an obsessive personality, and so like I really get into a group and I follow like their variety show appearances and stuff. The only problem is just like there's so many groups now. Like it's ridiculous how many groups debut every year in the industry because it's so popular. Like their groups are huge out like just all over Asia. Like they have so many Chinese fans, Japanese fans. Like J-pop is a thing, but I feel like I could be biased just because I'm much more immersed in K-pop than J-pop. But even in Japan, like the K-pop groups are huge compared to um like other stuff. And then yeah, they go all over Southeast Asia. But yeah, I just it's definitely the music's just insanely catchy, and I've always enjoyed pop music, like stereotypical
Mm.
catchy pop music. And they've just kind of perfected that. I feel like.
Do they do like do they do tours here ever?
Yeah, actually, today there was a Twitter thing that was saying a girl group. They didn't say which, but they hinted at 4 different ones. Will be in like New York, Toronto, L.A., Chicago, like early next year. And there were like 4 really popular groups that I like. So yeah, they do. There's KCON, so K-pop convention,
Hmm.
but it's basically at this point just a concert. Like a lot of the major artists go to that. There's one in New York. There's one in L.A. There's one in Paris. Um, so yeah, they do tour a little bit here, but not like Asia. Like they're not as
Hmm.
big here or outside of Asia as they are over there.
Yeah, it's
But
still
there
still
are,
more niche here.
yeah, it's definitely still a niche thing. But they do every once in a while come. It's rare for them to not to go anywhere but New York and LA. So that
Yeah,
kind of sucks because I'm in the Midwest. It'd be nice if they came to Chicago, which sometimes they do, but a lot more rare than New York and LA. Um,
yeah,
they kind of do regular, like probably once a year, go to those. Um, um, but yeah, I think the whole like they've just kind of like perfected the production of everything. Like music videos are like a really big thing. Like they're not a thing anymore, but for K-pop they are. Like the production of them is always really good. Like they have different like styles. And like I said, it's not really a genre anymore.
hmm,
So they if you like hip hop, you can listen to hip like Korean hip hop basically. It's part of K-pop. There are hip
yeah,
hop groups. And there's standard bubblegum pop, there's EDM, there's like more like I don't know how to describe it, like fierce girl groups, kind of like Rihanna type stuff, or there's more stuff like J-pop, like traditional bubblegum pop type groups, and there's just kind of something for everyone to be honest. There's rock band K-pop groups type like that they are rock bands like um so there's just kind of you don't really get bored of it because it's not all one type of music.
right, yeah. It's
So
just
I
that it's like a step removed from just the stuff we've got here,
yeah,
um,
exactly.
but also like heightened, I guess.
Yeah, and they like produce these groups. So like One Direction is big, and they like their fans know all the members' names. Like it's kind of similar to that, but to like even more extreme extent, where like each of the members, like you know the members' names and their personalities because they go on these variety shows and stuff, um, and do like radio interviews and recently they've been doing essentially like not Facebook, but like a live stream. There's a live stream service that a lot of them go on just to chat with fans and stuff regularly. So they're very like um, they just interact a lot. Like there's a lot of like appearances by them, so you get to know the members of the groups very well, and you kind of
Yeah,
identify with them.
yeah. It sounds like it's much more like integrated throughout multiple medias.
Yeah, I mean,
Whereas,
there's a reason they're called idols. Like they are
mm,
produced to be like idolized, which is starting to get weird for me because they're starting to get like they're getting younger. And like the groups that like the newer groups are like have like people born in like 2001,
oh, awesome.
so they're like 16 or 17. But like the groups I started when I started listening like are people that are older than me or around my age.
Yeah,
Um, so, but I mean, idolizing them doesn't necessarily mean in like a romantic way. Like you're so if that makes sense.
yeah,
Because I follow guy groups too, like not as much as the girl groups, but I think that's just because I've always preferred female voices and singing. Like
hmm,
even like when I before getting into K-pop, I was really into metal, and like symphonic metal and stuff, and I've always preferred the symphonic metal bands that have female singers over male singers.
cool.
So,
Any final thoughts on South Korea
um,
K-pop studying abroad that you want to kind
uh,
of address, touch on?
no, other than study abroad if you can. Go to Korea or anywhere that you want to really go to Korea if you have a chance. Like if you're ever going to Japan, like go to Seoul. It's a really cool city. Um, and I guess maybe I should give a couple K-pop recommendations.
Sure, yeah. Like
So
who are some of the good
my
groups?
favorite group is called Girls' Generation. They they are probably the most popular group in Korea. Like they're probably the most popular girl group ever in Korea. And the first song that really got me into K-pop is called G, like spelled Gee, like the expression. Um, it's probably the catchiest song ever made. But if you don't like super repetitive, catchy bubblegum pop, you might not be into it. but give it a chance. It's insanely catchy. Um, and so that's my favorite group. Some newer groups that are really popular. There's a couple guy groups. BTS is actually really popular in uh, like like foreign fans. They have a ton of foreign fans. And EXO is another guy group that's really popular. And then girl groups, there's two newer girl groups that are really, really popular are Twice and Blackpink. And yeah, their names are weird, but you get over it. um, yeah, if you're interested in looking them up, they all have YouTube channels. If you can just search those names, their music videos will come up. You can watch the music videos, listen to music. It's all this stuff's on iTunes too, but obviously you want to try it before you get into it to where you're buying it on iTunes.
Well, very cool. Thank you for
Enlightening
the
you.
brief education on K-pop. You mentioned that as a topic. I was like, that.
Like,
I mean, I have no idea where we're gonna go with that.
I meant more of like I wanted to just do like the study abroad culture stuff, but my variety shows in K-pop are like the biggest Korean culture things I follow. So
yeah, no, it's awesome. It's certainly not anything I would have thought to bring up, and I mean the whole intent of the getting to know you.
That's why I figured
is like, now I know something about you I would never have
a lot of people don't know that I studied abroad in Korea for 4 months, and it was something that I figured would be very because like I said, my other choice or thought was Magic the Gathering, but I felt like that's too close to gaming, and like I figured that would be Korean culture and K-pop and stuff would be a lot more interesting.
Yeah, so. Awesome, great. Well, thank you for bringing that up. And yeah, let's go ahead.